Hello, I'm Darren Jackal. I'm in my studio. I talk about product development, design, and mountaineering. Welcome to another edition of Experimental Design, Discourse, and Disclosure. Last few episodes, I did what I call a series on footwear and footwear-related design, things that I was up to, 30 years ago. That's over. I'm going to switch my gears to talk about what I've been interested in the past few years, and that is design integration of the products that I use when I'm mountaineering, ski mountaineering specifically these days. So I want to just talk a little bit about how things can change over time, how words can be overused or misused, how activities, their origins later on alter and become quite different, such as, say, telemarking. When I was young, I started off, on kid skis, and then I had downhill skis. There is a golf course not far from here, a couple-minute drive, that had a T-bar, and I was downhill skiing there when I was a kid. And then, of course, the Rockies are right here, and Fortress, Norquay, Sunshine, Lake Louise, that's where I spent my youth skiing. But then I got kind of bored with the hills, and I wanted to go into the backcountry and hunt for powder. And so I got telemark skis, and I got those telemark skis because I wanted to go up. And you had to know how to telemark to use that really sketchy gear to come down. And this is not the case anymore. Telemark is now ridiculously heavy and overly complicated, and it's pretty much relegated to the ski hill because no one's going to take this stuff into the backcountry. It's like I say, it's heavy, complicated, and it doesn't release effectively. Dynafit is really taken over in this case. Also, other things such as words can be overused. I stopped using the word extreme 20 years, 30 years ago when it was being overused. Today, I really can't stand the word disruptive products. I started hating that word a few years ago. And now, lately, it's the word game changer. Man, I can't stand that word. Please stop using the word game changer. I was at a conference not long ago, and someone said that they, in their organization, have stopped using the word strategy. Now, that to me makes no sense. If it's like watching a hockey game and saying the commentator is using the word puck too much, it's like, well, hey, if you're talking about the puck, then you might need to reference the puck. And if I need to talk to somebody about strategy, then I might need to use the word strategy. So anyways, I'm going to talk a lot about, well, I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm going to talk about the things I've been working on and disclose a bunch of information because it's probably never going to go anywhere. I just don't have the resources or the ability to produce these things myself, specifically since I've moved on from my latest job that gave me really good access to a fantastic fabrication facility. So anyways, I'll get into that next. I think I've mentioned before that I'm only interested in developing products that there is nothing out there like them. So innovate as a last resort, also part of my concept for product development. And what I'm going to be showing you today is really problem solving and addressing user needs for myself when I am going for distant summits in mainly the Rockies here. So, things up on the Columbia ice fields. Clemenceau is really on my list of things to get after. This is just a quick overview of the integration of the parts that I see that need to be integrated. And so I'm not interested in necessarily making a backpack, but I want a backpack that incorporates the Mountain Tool holster, and I also want a backpack that I can use to get all my gear into a high camp to then go for the summit. So I want it to expand to be able to take some extra gear, and I want it to be able to then be a more reasonable size for the summit day. But I also don't believe in making a really small, tiny backpack. There's this idea the airbags where you have this airbag avalanche backpacks where you have a really tiny backpack that then becomes a huge backpack when you need it in an avalanche. Well, I'd rather just have a appropriate size backpack that I can carry all my gear in, and I don't have to jam it all in there. I hate having to do that. So what my ideas for a backpack is that, well, it needs to extend. I want to be able to put a sled on it because there are times when a sled is really handy, and the sled design I'll talk about way later. But what I've been, something that was bothering me, and it was an issue with me, especially with the pair of pants I had and a back pocket zipper, that I don't know what they were thinking about when they were designing it. But on the way into, it was a long approach to Mount Resplendent, my backpack was rubbing that zipper end into my butt for hours, and I was just not able to understand how they couldn't consider the fact that when I'm wearing these pants, I may be wearing a harness and a backpack. So, and one of the things that I've done as an exercise was to put on all the clothing and equipment that I'd be wearing for, a technical summit ascent, crevasse crossings and glacier ski ascent. And man, I think I got up to around 15, 20 layers once you add in all the clothing, the harness layers, the backpack belt layer, and I'm talking right around my waist, and also the layers from my shirt and my vest that I would tuck into my pants. And it was ridiculous. So one of the things I wanted to do is see if I could reduce that amount of stuff around my waist. And one of the things I thought was, why are we padding the backpack when I really need the padding on my body? So what I'm working on is a pair of pants. So the backpack works with the pants and the vest, and the pants work with the ski boots, and the vest works with all the pieces you need. So we'll have to go into each one of these individually. But the key idea here is that I want a backpack big enough to get my shit in. I don't want to spend time trying to jam it in. I'd rather just pack it appropriately and have it carry the load. I want to have pants that have padding in it. I want a vest that has a bit of padding in it. I want to reduce the amount of padding and stuff I have on the backpack. And because I'm really interested in only developing, new types of products or ways of coming up with things, I wanted to make this backpack in a different way. And at that time in my shop, I had access to a vacuum former, a large vacuum former. So one of the things I thought about doing was using PETG, and if everyone's seen this stuff, it's pretty indestructible. And if I could figure out a way to form the majority of a backpack out of this stuff, so I built myself a form, it would be split in two, and then I would have a seam glue it together. This is what I was going to be experimenting with. Anyways, it didn't happen because they got rid of the vacuum former while I was away on vacation, and I come back and it's gone. So I'm like, oh, well, that's great. Anyway, so then I decided to try and make it out of, traditional materials that I was still experimenting with. You can see I'm trying to integrate the Mountain Tool holster here, and there's a few other innovations that, if I'm going to experiment, I'm going to experiment big. I'm going to try a whole bunch of stuff and then weed it out, because there's only one way to know for certain if it's going to work, and that's to try it in reality, in the field. So anyways, I'm going to make a cut here and we'll get into a few more of the specifics. There's different scenarios in ski mountaineering, backcountry skiing, and you can think about scenarios dealing with day trips from early season yo-yo skiing in the Kootenays to spring ascents of Rocky Mountain classics later on. But what I'm more interested in is the multi-day summit trips. Within that, context, there is different scenarios that we're going to have to talk about, and this is going to come down to where your gear is and how you're utilizing your gear when you're going up. So when you're going up, most often you're going to be skinning from the parking lot, and that could be,
non-technical type of skinning where the terrain is easy to navigate and to travel through, and it can get more and more technical depending on whether you are on glaciers or the type of conditions you're encountering. So if you have hard conditions, you may be wearing a ski crampon. The next part of going up would be if you are no longer able to have your skis on going up skinning because either the angle is too steep or there's not enough room to do kick turns, then you may be in some non-technical booting where you're just kicking steps in snow. That can become technical and to the point where you now have boot crampons and an ice axe in your hand or two. So that's going to depend. Then they'll be going down, and obviously you're hoping for the best scenario where you're going to be skiing from the summit on soft snow, hopefully powder, but the chances of you having to do more technical types of downhill is always going to be there. So you may be on a glacier or you may be being required to rappel. So as we talk about, or as I talk about these different pieces of gear and how I see them integrating into a system, the more I need to put this into context so it makes it understandable.
With that, I'm going to wrap up today's episode. I'm Darren Jackal. I'm in my studio. I talk about design, product development, and mountaineering. This has been Experimental Design, Discourse, and Disclosure.